Alrighty, so this is number 20, and I'm totally doing this on the same day that I did number 19, so it's really just a part 2 of the previous one because I didn't do one yesterday, so I'm doing 2 today. That's okay. And the 20th piece of advice that I would give to my childhood self is flowing on from this idea that I talked about, that joy is innate in us. Joy is the thing that is truth, like really deep within us, that is buried underneath the expectation of others and thinking that happiness lies outside of us and trying to meet a normal thing that is perceived based on an external thing. All these things that we've talked about thus far, when you're peeling that back and just joy is allowed to shine through, and choosing to allow that is about really knowing what to take on, choosing what to take on in each moment, so that you're not overwhelming yourself with the circumstances or the environment or other people's opinions or others. Of course, we're hearing it and we're learning from it, but we're really only taking on what serves us and brings us joy. To follow on from that, the next thing I want to talk about was this idea about learning, and that not everything can be learned from outside of you. And I think this can be quite a tricky thing to say, because I think a lot of people would not agree with me. But I say this in not saying like, don't listen to science, don't listen to facts, of course. The world is round, we live in this universe, this wall will stop my hand going through it. I'm hitting a wall, by the way. There are some things that are in our physical world that we see, but of course, if you really look into science, and people always talk about your 5 senses perceiving the world around you, we have like 27. Most scientists will tell you we've got 27, but in a school system we learn 5 still, because, keeping up with the times. But this idea that textbooks teach you this, and books will teach you things, and you can take on information from all these sources outside of you. But there comes a point when you're taking on information that there can be a point where you go too long in getting things from others, to the point where you become reliant on others for information. And so what this can look like is, if you are obviously, like, for example, in your workplace, if you're starting a job, of course, you need to find information. You need to seek that out in other people's, in the way that the office runs or the workplace runs. And then that allows you to move to the next level. And when you're in that level, you have to learn the roles and things for that one. And it keeps going like that. But as you get higher and higher and higher, you have a lot of experience. You have collected a lot of knowledge. And it becomes a point that you would be in a role where you then are in a creative contribution role, where you are now the source of information. You know a lot, and you have it within you that if you were in that role and then were talking to everyone still about how to do your job, you're not going to be someone that is looked to, and you're not going to be able to create from new things. You're just constantly looking what has been done, and it becomes like a copy and paste situation. You're not creating from this new source within you, and you're not trying to find your own new spin on it, I guess. So there comes a point where we do need to accept what we have learned and put it into action in our own way. And through doing that, and through being in action, and through looking into yourself and what you have to say on the topic with all the information that you've collected, you get to see this new way of doing something, or a new way of approaching something. And in doing so, you actually come to your own conclusions and you come to your own wisdom. And I think that's something I've been discovering recently. Is I have a tendency to, I've for the last couple of years been very into my personal development and growth and trying to become a better version of a human that I am, and trying to work through my past traumas and my old stories and limiting beliefs that hold me back from things that I want to do, or that keep me in a suffering state, that keep me sad, that keep me down. And so I'm really trying to move through those things so that I can be in a joyful state every day. But I got into this habit where I was constantly seeking information outside of me. I was reading the books, and I was, going to the seminars, and I was doing online coaching, and I was doing all this stuff. And I got to this point where it's like, when does it end? And I was actually doing another mentorship program this last 6 months. And in the calls, my teacher was talking about how he wanted us to meditate. And the reason he wanted us to do that was because it's all well good for him to stand up there and to, talking to us and teaching us. But at the beauty of this 6 months call is that the 6 months worth of calls is that we've done calls 5 days a week for 6 months. And I've been learning. And then I've gotten to this point in this, in the last month where I look at the calls and I'm like, they end in a month. Like, there's no more. And there was this moment of like, oh, what am I going to do when he's not there to tell me what to do? Who am I going to listen to? And I was like, yeah, no, like this advice that I need to actually listen to what I have to say is so true, because once his voice of how to guide me is gone, how am I going to know how to live my life? And it's almost like this idea of, if you're a kid and you turn to your parents and look for their guidance, or teachers or people above you. And of course it's in our nature, and it's good to seek out mentorship and to be helped. But if you're constantly relying on your parents to give you information, you never become your own adult. You never become a fully, self-actualized human. You don't get to feel this own accomplishment of your own knowledge, and to really know to find out what you know. And so coming back to this idea that not everything can be learned outside of you, I think as well, relating this back to this idea that depending on what culture you're raised in, or what place of the world you're raised in, or who your family is, and what socioeconomic background you come from, all these things are affecting the way you look at the world. And that's things that you learn from the outside, right? But there comes a time, I think, where we need to come and sit with ourselves and hear our own thoughts and hear our own inner wisdom. And sometimes I kind of talked about those, I'm sorry, I've got my list of 30, which is why I keep looking down, but I'm looking, what was the one I talked about in one of them? I'll Follow Your Heart. It was the one where it was sometimes there's things where you feel contraction in your body. It's oh, I want to do this. And you just feel this shying away from doing something. And then you're oh, I have this heart call to do something. I feel expanded, and you get that opening, and you get excited about doing it, and you feel energetic, and you feel it in your body. And so that's the kind of wisdom that I'm talking about, this innate knowing of what you should do, whether you're basing your decision on logic or not, or on this intuition kind of excitement. Sometimes learning from the outside can be really good, but there is a point when you need to go, okay, I'm going to listen to this inner thing that tells me and guides me and shows me what is for me. And I think learning to trust that thing and continue to grow and learn, and almost kind of I don't know, it's hard to say because I'm still in that process. I'm in the process right now. I'm in that introspection. I'm into that trying to find my own wisdom. And I think that's what these videos in some way are, is I'm trying to figure out what it is my own voice has to say, what my own thoughts and feelings on different matters are. I've been spending the last 6 months asking other people what their advice for the childhood self would be. And it was all well and good to get that information and learn from the other external points of view. But at the end of the day, it's a question that I had. And I'm so interested to see what comes through for me, what I have to say on the matter. And it's actually really interesting feeling through what I've heard, and some of this stuff has come from the outside, but then some of it I'm talking on the video, and all of a sudden I say something, I'm like, oh, I didn't know I thought that. And I come up with this metaphor, I'm like, oh, that's new, I've never heard of that. Maybe I have, I don't know, but I don't think I have. And it comes through and I'm like, ah, that's kind of cool. And I learned something just from speaking it and from discovering something and going into something. So yeah, I think I could really go into this so much more, but I think I'm gonna leave it at that. And just in terms of kids, again, it's kind of linked. They kind of all of these videos are kind of intertwined. They really do cross over and intersect, and so there's no hard and fast, cut and dry. You know the idiom. Those two, merge them, all good. They intersect, and so saying that one is separate from the other is hard, but it does really relate back to that idea of when teaching kids when they're learning to begin to, they're learning, but then also to allow them space to make mistakes and celebrate that failure and to continue to learn. And even though they're learning from outside, learning from what they are learning. So reflecting upon the process, reflecting on what they love and what they don't love, and listening to those heart calls, and it's all coming together. I could just say all of the things. But yeah, just knowing that the outside isn't going to always dictate how we see the world, that sometimes someone else's perspective on the world is going to be different to our own. And so even though we might be learning from them, and it's good to take on their version, we do really need to come into our own and see our own perspective of our view of the world. And maybe if you then are looking at that moving forward, it's like maybe the way that you have to say something is going to speak to someone in a totally different way. So yeah, that's my 20th piece of advice for my childhood self. Have a good day, and I'll be here tomorrow again, another 10 days.